So welcome. So you have like up to 20 minutes plus 5-minute question if you want, and give you the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mauricio, and hello everybody. Um, so what I'd like to talk about is how over the last 3 years, Whistling Woods has worked with various aspects of the industry to create India's first generation of cinematic VR filmmakers. And while doing so, we have also kind of push the envelope when it comes to creating content of certain types in order to lay down curriculum and standards for the same, right? And when I say standards, I don't mean on the tech side, but I mean more on the content, workflow, pipelines, etc., those areas. So this was the problem statement for cinematic VR that we saw in 2018, when this was being tackled by the world. Now, the good thing about this is that we, as a film school, Whistling Woods, we didn't need to tackle all this because there were various organizations that were handling various aspects of this problem statement. So, standards, VRIF themselves were one of the few people who were taking care of it. That there was security, acquisition, and data management. I mean, it's hyper dynamic. It's like a perpetual battle. It's never going to get solved. So there was file formats, workflows. There's the software pipelines which were continuously being developed. The computing requirements were hyper dynamic. So the idea was that we as an institute had to keep our focus on content creation and building awareness. And that's when we started to look at VR as the fourth content consumption platform. So there's film or theatrical, there's television, there's digital OTT, and there's VR. And the nature of content consumption, the nature of the platform, the nature of viewing informs the kind of content that gets created, right? And which is really what we wanted to focus on. So film is captive community viewing, and TV is non-captive family viewing, digital is non-captive individual viewing, and VR is captive individual viewing. And there are other aspects to each of these content. Some are fixed frame, some VR is the first one that's frameless. We had a broad duration that we had defined for that we have defined for each of these formats. VR, the broad kind of outline was between 60 seconds and 60 minutes. That is what everybody thought it would be, even though there's very, very few 60-minute long pieces of content, but there are some. And most importantly, it was the USP, right? What does the content mean? So the fact that it's a larger than life audiovisual narrative spectacle, and what television offers, what OTT offers, and what VR offers. So what we knew was immersive and interactive is all we know currently, or is all we knew back in 2018, and we had to figure out what these question marks were, and that was our goal. That was our a plan to make sure that we worked on it. So we set up the lab. The vision of the lab was simple: to work with all stakeholders, platforms, tech creators, content creators, viewers, and most importantly, the industry, to ensure proliferation of VR as the fourth platform. And in order to do that, the mission was to create India's first generation of cinematic VR content creators. So before we did that, we had to get the industry on board, and we needed a principal partner for that, and that became Reliance Jio. So Reliance Jio today is one of the world's largest telecom companies. It has over 450 million subscribers, and it's just 5 years old. It started in 2016. And 2018, when we were looking for a principal partner to run the lab and to kind of co-brand the lab with, they stepped up, just like various organizations work with various labs all across the world. So Jio partnered with us. And not just that, we got a bunch of technology partners that came on board. So everybody from Apple to HP, from Insta to Candau, we had Pro Tools, Sennheiser, the whole Dear VR and that Spatial Connect. We had Mystica, NVIDIA, Unreal, Unity. So we managed to get a good plethora of tech partners on board. Some of them contributed hardware, most of them contributed training and kind of access to beta softwares, access to beta upgrades of software patches as well as hardware in some cases. The next is we needed a advisory board. We needed brains trust that we could rely on, that we could pick up the phone and call in case we needed help. We managed to put together a good set of people. So we had the head of Intel VR. We had Chris, who was the ex-head of immersive of Adobe and founder of Metal. Julina and Lewis were content creators who had created fiction narrative content in VR, and then a few others from gaming engines and a couple of other creative technologists. And then we decided to do workshops. So we organized a lot of workshops. We got people to come over to India to do workshops with the lab, with the student, with us, to start to get our foundation straight on cinematic VR, what it means for content creation in 360. So just some photographs of the same. And then we also decided to reach out to the local industry because we realized that we were not the only people in India who were doing work on it. We wanted to try and get the larger VR community on board to make sure that everybody understood what the other person was doing and we could learn of each other. So we ended up organizing a year-long series of workshops, starting from 2018 May to 2019 April, where we managed to bring together most of the leading operators in virtual reality in India. Some of those photographs. We also managed to do a lot of work and put together kind of a global outreach where we ended up writing a lot of the reports and a lot of how should I say strategy, and we kind of became thought leaders for cinematic VR in India. So we wrote the FICCI ENY media report, the entire VR section. Select is a global association of film schools. Whistling Woods is a member of Select, and in 2018 we hosted the Select World Congress, and the topic of that was, one of the kind of key focuses on that was how to include the education of cinematic VR in film education. And we managed to get 170, 180 film schools of the world to participate. Their deans and academic heads were on campus for the same. There were paper presentations, there were discussions, there were curriculum conversations. And then I also presented at IBC 2 years ago, and also at the International Film Festival of India 2 years ago. We then started to bring in industry professionals to start to do workshops. Right? Once we were aware of how we could educate the industry professionals on the tech workflows, then we started to bring them in to use and tap their skill set on creating 360 VR content. And that's where we learned from the commercial Indian industry, from Bollywood, from various areas, as much as they learned from us. So we ended up achieving and shooting multiple both fiction and non-fiction shorts, so both as complete pieces as well as experimental shoots. Each of them had detailed academic oversight where every single decision that was taken while the content was being created was weighed, and there was an analysis and a tracking of that decision all the way from the decision being made to what impact it had on the final film and whether it was a positive one or not. So that enabled us to distill out a set of best practices into a curriculum for cinematic VR. And that has now since been incorporated into the Whistling Woods filmmaking program, the full-time filmmaking program. And if the lockdown of the pandemic hadn't happened, we would have also started continuing education, shorter workshops and programs for the industry. So starting from the batch that graduates next year, all Whistling Woods graduates will be VR ready. Our goal is to make sure that every single of our 250, 300 graduates who pass out know how to create fiction narrative or non-fiction narrative content in 360 VR. Just some of the photographs of the content that we've created. So we decided to kind of go both ends. So one film, this was done, the one you see on the left was entirely a closed set inside our studio. And the second one that we shot was entirely outdoors, where we used no existing, there was no set that was created. We only shot in real locations because we wanted to make sure that, we're able to put the workflow together in both a controlled and an uncontrolled setup. Right? This is the first of our non-fiction projects that we've done. So the two non-fiction projects that we picked up, that we decided to do, both were very different. I don't know how many of you all know the Kumbh Mela. So the Kumbh Mela is the world's largest gathering of humanity. So in 2019, so the Kumbh happens every 6 years, and the larger size Kumbh happens every 12 years, and a smaller one happens every 6 years. So in 2019, we had over 230 million people who visited Prayagraj, which is the location of the Kumbh, between 15 Jan and 4th March. And the lab team was there at the Kumbh, spent over a month capturing many hours of content of the Kumbh to be made into a Kumbh VR series. So we've made one part of this, but we have captured this content in 6K. And as time goes by and as headsets start to get better and better, we have already started working on cutting it into a series. Now, this content has no expiry. This is a forever piece of content, because the kind of shots that we've taken and the kind of footage we've got is never ever going to happen again. Right? So the other some more we've cut a 7-minute segment of the Kumbh, which I'm happy to share links with you, YouTube links with you. Y'all can watch it at your convenience. The other project we decided to take up was a really long-standing project. This was almost 4.5 year long project. So in Mumbai currently, there is a metro being constructed. It's one of the world's longest underground single metro lines, which is 35.5 kilometers long. And Mumbai itself as a city is a 70% reclaimed city. So this was a very complex project. And we have the opportunity, we knew that in our lifetimes, this is never going to happen again. And we had the opportunity to document the making, the construction, coming together of the metro. And we've been working with the Mumbai Metro Rail Corporation now for about 2.5 years, documenting key events of the metro. So things like tunnel breakthroughs, we've put VR camera inside a tunnel boring machine, so that people really get a first-hand view of how tunneling happens. We've acquisition gear on top of cranes all over the place. Right, so these are some shots of this. So we will hope to get about 25-30 hours of footage between 2019 and 2023 before we put together the final output, which is going to go into the Metro Museum that is being constructed. We've got a lot of media coverage for what we've been doing. So we believe that this was important, because until and unless you do have outreach and the industry is not aware of the fact that VR is very much a reality and it's mainstream, it's here, there are people who are doing it. So the Mint is the Wall Street Journal's kind of newspaper in India. So we got a front page coverage of the work really covered. We've done a lot of industry outreach, both filmmakers, so that's essentially what we've been doing. So where is the lab now and what next? So where we are now is Cinematic VR is part of the Whistling Woods curriculum being taught to all film and media students. Whistling Woods has structured a special Cinematic VR short program for industry professionals. We hope to roll it out by January once things open up a little bit more. What next? We've already started moving on to 6DoF VR experiences now. We've built our own indigenous workflow pipelines for volumetric capture as well as photogrammetry. And using the Azure Connect sensors, as well as several softwares at various stages of beta, alpha, beta, and now final release. Um, and we've managed to get good outputs from them. We've also started to put them into practice. So there is a film currently that where a key part of the film, key characters have been created using volumetric capture, and that's currently doing the rounds of festivals. So we look at integration of photogrammetry, volumetric capture into creating 6DoF VR experiences. So that's where we are, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Yeah,
How do I stop
have here some
sharing?
questions for you. First question is exactly what is the capture resolution, and what is the resolution for consumption on the movies you made?
So they've been shot on both 6K and 8K. So on the Candow Obsidian R and S, as well as the Insta360 Pro and the Insta360 Pro 2. We will also start to work on the Titan as well as some of the earlier shots were taken on customized rigs where DSLRs were mounted. So all in all, we would look at about at least a minimum 4K to 6K acquisition. I think 6K in most cases. The problem with playback right now is that there aren't too many headsets that are 4K per eye, right? And that's also one of the reasons why we've kind of held back on doing too much work on the Metro initially, as well as on the Kumbh, because there's no point creating all this content if you don't have the excellent headsets that are needed to see it, right? So we're waiting for a wide array, a wide spectrum of 2K per eye or 4K per eye headsets to emerge. And then we will then rely on excellent distribution workflows and pipelines that are being created. One of them, I can see Rob is part of this team. So, you know, what he's been doing with Tiled Media and Clear VR, that's fantastic. So we're looking at building out, waiting actually for a good distribution and quality headsets to emerge before we roll it out. That said, that doesn't stop us from continuing to do our own creative as well as academic R&D work on the content without kind of bothering too much on the final output quality right now.
Okay. And do you have any information on the audience sizes of your productions? How many viewers?
So the Kumbh, when it does release, we're expecting at least 1 million people to watch it in the first year. I mean, it's a very how should I say? It's a very sought after piece of content. We've had several high level officials from the Indian central government who visited the campus many times just to kind of view the 7-minute segment that we have created so far. And where this is expected to go in every single large museum in the country. This is expected to be syndicated to every large film festival globally. So our goal is for 1 million people to see it in the first year once it's ready. When it comes to the metro, we're not so sure because that is more, when people are kind of who are really passionate about engineering and construction and large projects, they would be the ones to see it. But that will have its presence in National Geographic coverage as well as in the Metro Museum that is being created. So the second piece of content, we're not so sure. The fiction pieces of content, the 2-3 fiction pieces of content we've created, I'm not so sure at this point of time what the audience for that would be. But given the fact that it is Reliance Jio that is our partner, and Jio is pretty much the primary VR ecosystem in India at this point of time, they're the ones that are launching the first indigenous headsets. They're the ones who are launching the first indigenous distribution mechanism, both on fiber as well as on 4G, and soon to be launched on 5G. So we're hoping for the fiction short films to do well as well.
Okay, anyone from the audience still has a question, please raise your hands or put it in the chat. No, I don't see it. Then I just have a last question for you, and especially looking at VRIF. So how important was standardization in the guidelines on 360 VR for your work?
It was very important. So when we actually, if you look at it over a 3-year period, we've almost rewritten our SOPs, I would say 3 or 4 times. We've got everything from how do you write the scripts to how do you do the blocking to whether you shoot 360 all the time or you shoot 180 in 2 patches and have the crew turn around, to how do you direct actors, to how do you rehearse with actors, to how do you shoot for post. So each of these has been reviewed and reviewed and reviewed almost after every day or every schedule of shoot. So whereas the technical standards, we've looked at what the VRF has been doing, and we've broadly ended up following those. But for us, it's really more about guidelines. It's more about production guidelines and how do we bring those to the industry.
Okay, thank you very much for this interesting talk.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've kind of got half a second, I could just quickly show you a minute or so of the Kumbh.
अस्तित्व 3000 वर्ष पुराना है,
So the
किंतु इतिहास में इसका पहला उल्लेख 7वीं शताब्दी में चीन देश से आए यात्री.
So this will give you a good sense of what the it's like. It's a new city that is created, a 40 square kilometer large city that gets created with 300 kilometers of roads, and over 230 million people visit it over a 50-day period. So we've interviewed the Naga sadhus that come down from the Himalayas for it. We've interviewed the army unit that is kind of deployed to take care of the Kumbh. We've interviewed, we've looked at the dips that they take in the Ganga. We've done day shoots, we've done night shoots, we've done static camera, we've done moving camera. We put the camera inside a helicopter. We almost put the camera inside the water a couple of times, and thankfully we had good housing for that. So we've tried to do as much as we could with it to make sure that we're able to really, extract, put the production through as rigorous a situation as possible to enable people to, understand that yes, you can make VR. We've done supers, obviously, as you can see. We're going to be doing more and more and more of this packaging. So yeah, I mean, I don't know whether the quality is even good enough, because YouTube really streams not good quality. So I wish I was streaming on. Yeah. So I wish I was streaming on Clear VR, but I can't.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Chaitanya. It was very interesting to see all the work you've done and basically shaping new directors to make it VR. That's very interesting.
Thank you so much.
Now we go. Yeah. So now we go for next topic. We're gonna switch to Xiaogang. His presentation is recorded, but he's available for question at the end.